After 3 years and 4 games of simply treading water and only occasionally being relevant, it's time to admit that this Colts roster is flawed in the way that it's been constructed. We'll get to all that and much more on today's episode of Locked On Colts. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and making us your number one listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is Jake Arthur, joined by the one and only Zach Hicks, and you know the two of us from horseshoehuddle.com. Today, we've let it marinate for 24 hours. We did the 24-hour rule, and I tell you, it's still not good. Nope. It's time to fire away at this Colts team once again. You know, we've done it before, but more specifically, we're going to talk about how it's been constructed and how that's now a detriment moving forward and to what they want to accomplish now and how that just may not be realistic.
Right.
So, Zach, for you guys first, if you haven't already, Zach put out an awesome piece on Chris Ballard and the roster construction just like a couple hours ago on horseshoehuddle.com. So if you haven't read it yet, you're about to get the verbal audiobook version, I guess. So Zach, shoot. The Colts lost another one to an AFC South opponent, 24-17 to Tennessee on Sunday. They haven't beaten the Titans at home since 2018. At home, your own stadium, division opponent. It's almost like as bad, not quite as bad, but what the Jacksonville curse has become. It's almost like they can't defend their own home turf against the Titans. Right. And I'm gonna give kudos to our guy Kenan for pointing that one out. But man, it used to be the Colts were the top dogs, the big brothers of everybody in the AFC South, but now they're just another kind of irrelevant team. Like Derek Schultz pointed this out recently. They're part of the laughing stock that is the AFC South now. They're not the ones that, oh, the Texans and Jaguars suck. No, the Colts are part of that now. They've become part of the joke.
Yeah, the one thing I actually wanted to ask you before we jump into my discussion of this piece is, like, when I approached writing this Chris Ballard article, you know, it's weird because you could probably count the number of negative articles I've written about the Colts on one hand in my 4 years covering the team. I don't like writing hit pieces or negative pieces, but I felt like this was something that needed to be said. We've just gone too long treading water with this regime where it's just Band-Aid after Band-Aid. But I wanted to ask you, Jake, as a Colts fan, as someone who's kind of grown up covering this team and stuff like that, did I at least do a decent job of this of kind of showing the discomfort with this regime? Like, did what I was saying kind of make sense to you as a reader when you were kind of reading through that piece?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Because, I mean, we've heard for years people blindly saying, you know, fire Reich, fire Ballard, they can't do this, they can't do that, blah, blah, blah. You've provided examples of why things are bad. And you've been an avid supporter of this regime for a while.
Big. Yeah.
But like for you and I both, they've always had things that maybe we didn't agree with, but we understood why they were doing them that way. But now you're looking at the finished product of all those, you know, all those missteps is why they're in this position that they're in right now. You know, allocating funds in certain areas, not investing enough funds in dynamic areas. Like,
right.
I think you laid it out perfectly. And I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head for those of us who have been supporters and may still be, but can acknowledge that this is now a huge critical problem.
Yeah, and I think the way that I really wanted to approach this article and when I talked about Chris Ballard was, you know, this is just me kind of prefacing a little bit of what the article was, is the Colts are just a mediocre team. Like, and we can keep saying, like, oh, it's just Band-Aid, 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 like they're getting better. But, like, the thing is, if you look at this team, strengths and weaknesses of this team, and a lot of the stuff they have right now compared to the 2020 team, you would say that this is like the worst version of that team, or by the end of the season, they might just be the same version of that team. We don't know. Again, my whole article is about mediocrity, so I guarantee this team will win like 7 to 8 games this year. Like I totally guarantee that's where they're going to be. But we're at the point where we have a front office that's just not improving. Like they are the same front office that they were in 2017, 2018, which is fine. Like they built this roster out of the dirt. Like this roster was dirt poor in terms of talent. And they're such good talent evaluators where they were able to fix a lot of these holes just by how good they were at drafting. Like, I don't want to downplay that. Chris Ballard in this front office is outstanding at identifying talent.
Mm-hmm.
The issue comes with the 2 articles or the 2 pieces I mentioned in that article with free agency approach and the quarterback process. So to start with the free agency approach, I don't hate Chris Ballard's approach to free agency. Like you don't want to be the first guys. You don't want to be the first signing. You don't want to be the I'm giving $20 million to some third string receiver. Like Chris Ballard says, you don't want to pay B players A money. Absolutely agree. I 100% agree. You don't want to just be giving out bad contracts just for the sake of giving out bad contracts. But where you are really hurting with Chris Ballard and with this regime is they're going into off seasons with noticeable holes. Like defensive end going into 2021. I mean, they had Ben Bandigoud, Tyquan Lewis, and Al-Qadim Muhammad as the only 3 real pass rushers going into that 2021 offseason. And they had plenty of money. They had guys that they could have gone out and got. And the only player in free agency they addressed that with was Isaac Rochelle, a guy who is a fringe roster player who's on a practice squad right now, where I think he's might be on the Browns,
not on the Colts.
And not on the Colts, right?
Yep.
And the approach was, we're going to address this with Kwity Paye and Dayo Dangbo. Dayo Dangbo coming off an injury and Kwity Paye being a really raw rookie. That was never going to be a successful path at pass rusher. And we saw it last year where they were the worst pass rushing team in all of football. Going into this offseason, we saw noticeable holes at offensive tackle, at left tackle, at right guard. And instead of bringing in some veterans to at least kind of help that situation or maybe provide some depth in camp and something like that, it was just given to Matt Pryor, it was given to Danny Pinter, and we've seen an absolute disaster. So the free agency approach has just not been good. And what I referenced in the article is, if you look at the Buffalo Bills, for instance, the 2018 season, the Buffalo Bills were a 6-10 team, and young quarterback Josh Allen was running for his life. He was not having a good time back there in the pocket. So what did Brandon Beane do? He signed 5 offensive linemen that offseason, drafted one with the 38th overall pick. And yeah, a couple of them were bust. A couple of them just did not work out. But at the end of the day, that offensive line improved to a degree where Josh Allen and the Bills were a 10-16 the next season. And then going into that next offseason, they addressed it. They saw that they had a huge need at pass rusher and defensive line. And they signed, 4 or 5 defensive linemen, drafted 2 with high picks, and they were able to excel that team up to 13-3. Now, again, it helps having a quarterback that's going to keep transcending every single season, and you continually have that quarterback. But they are seeing these holes, and they're using not only the draft, they're using free agency as well. Chris Ballard is a great talent evaluator. He's able to find guys like Chris Reed, Danico Autry, Rodney McLeod, but it's never at the positions of need. It's never throwing resources at those positions of need. So that's where the free agency approach falls apart. And to quickly touch on the quarterback one here that I mentioned in the article, I had a lot of comments on this article saying like, oh, who should they have drafted? They could have drafted Justin Fields, but look how bad he's playing. Or they could have drafted Mac Jones and look how bad he's playing. The issue with the whole quarterback dilemma that the Colts have had the last couple of years is not the result necessarily. It's the process. The Colts are going into each one of these off seasons grabbing a Band-Aid before the offseason process starts. They're grabbing Carson Wentz in January. They're grabbing Matt Ryan in March, or whatever it is.
Phillip Rivers was wrapped up by the combine. From what I was told when I would talk to people at the combine in February, Phillip Rivers was basically already
right. So they're just wrapping up the quarterback situation really early in the process with some veteran Band-Aid that's not going to be around for a long time. And they're just taking the draft completely off the board. And they're making it so they don't have to take that risk in the draft. So a big part of that article was, it's not that Chris Ballard is bad at what he does. It's that he's too conservative. And so much of what he does is it's so much about self-preservation. Because if a Band-Aid fails, you can't blame me. I took a risk on a Hall of Fame quarterback, or I took a risk on Frank's guy. at quarterback or something like that, which was
Mhm.
the whole Carson. I mean, I could do a whole podcast on the Carson Wentz dilemma and how Chris Ballard is effectively making Frank Reich the fall guy for that. But it's so much of just mitigating that risk, making sure that he keeps prolonging his stay with the Colts. But eventually it's going to catch up to you because Carson Wentz was your fall guy last year. Frank Reich is your fall guy this year. Who's your fall guy next year? There is no fall guy for him next year. So I think when you approach this caution, when you go so cautious to where your team is always going to win 7, 8, 9, 10 games, you never have a chance at the Super Bowl. You never have a chance at a high pick. So eventually your luck runs out, but you're kind of prolonging the inevitable. You're going to maybe have a 7-year tenure, but you're never going to win anything meaningful. You're going to be a 500 GM and you're never going to, take this team to the next level. So a whole part of my article, and if you guys want to read it, I try to go into more detail there. It's just so much of how this team has been built is very flawed, from not using free agency to mitigate some risk to the hole on the roster. And then the whole entire quarterback process has just been so broken with how they approach it. Just, again, Band-Aid after Band-Aid in hopes of getting to an 8-win team or a 9-win team or a 10-win team. There's just no hope of grabbing that future guy that can push you over the top. Even if you miss, it's fine to take those risks. The Colts right now are just never taking that risk. So yeah, read my article with Horseshoe Huddle, and also read Ben Solak's article with the Ringer from this past offseason. He did a great job of kind of putting all these things into words as well. I just don't think Chris Ballard's approach, if it stays the same, is one that's going to get the Colts ever over the hump. And that's where my frustration lies.
Yeah, it's been enough to tread water, and I think it was mentioned, this approach would be nice if Andrew Luck was still here, because you're fortifying the roster with all these really good role players. But I mean, it doesn't matter much right now because it is what it is. But the quarterback position is one you have to take a risk at. You can fill in the rest of the blanks after that. Like you mentioned, a great example with the Bills and Josh Allen and everything. Kansas City, they have Patrick Mahomes. Their offensive line was a problem. They lost the Super Bowl because he didn't have a second to throw. So they bought a whole new offensive line that offseason. You just see these huge problems and you address them. It can be through free agency. Sure, you don't want to get jerks who with poor work ethic and everything. I understand they have that whole locker room thing. They don't want to give a ton of money to guys who don't work for it. But you got to get playmakers in there. I think players would appreciate more seeing you wanting to win, giving them teammates that are going to get them over the hump. Because at the end of the day, losing is going to constantly losing and being mediocre is cause a big problem. That'll lose you the locker room just as well as giving big money to guys who won't work for it will.
Yeah. The last thing I will say before we have to move on, because we can't spend the whole podcast on one segment, is I've covered a lot of really bad teams, and I've watched a lot of really bad teams in my life. I grew up a Washington fan. I know exactly what bad football is, and I know what mediocre football is. Mediocrity is so much worse than being a bad team. Mediocrity is if you say you have a really nice shirt, right? Mediocrity is like having a stain on that shirt, right? Being a bad team is that shirt just rips in half. You can just toss it. It's fine. It's fine. You can perfectly toss it. But having a stain on that really nice shirt, you keep convincing yourself you know what? It's fine. I can wear this out. It's fine. Eventually that stain is too bad to where you do want to throw it out, but it's not until all your friends think you're a disgusting slob and it's not good. So mediocrity is worse than being terrible. And right now the Colts are just stuck in mediocrity, and I just don't know there's a fix with this current regime.
Yeah, because you had mentioned being just in the middle. Maybe you're relevant enough at the end of the season to compete for the playoffs, but you're also missing out on premium talent in the draft early on. And then you have to trade all those assets that you treat like gold or you can't do so. Yeah. Blah, blah. So yeah. Yeah. Again, this is one we could go on a whole new special episode about, but through 4 games, the Colts have not put out a very good product for Colts fans. It's not great. We're obviously talking all about it. But our next partner has a product that I use literally every day. I started taking AG1 because I struggle balancing the time to prepare healthy stuff in my diet throughout the day, and it's really easy to do with them. Now I've been on it for a few weeks, and I love it. It doesn't taste like it's super healthy. if you've ever had some sort of super green type of drink with those mixes and the powders or anything like that before, you know exactly what I mean. AG1, though, has kind of a mild tropical taste that I actually look forward to each morning, and it doesn't taste like licking the bottom of a lawnmower or anything like that. It's pretty good. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, aging, all the things. I've always been pretty big on trying to get as many healthy things in me at once, like vitamins, minerals, etc., just so I don't have to focus on eating this healthy thing for breakfast, this for lunch, blah, blah, blah. Just get it all at once. And that's kind of what AG1 is like. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, and it's cheaper than getting all the different supplements yourself. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 five-star reviews, and it's even recommended by professional athletes, such as the ones that you hear us talk about every day. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NFL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Thanks again for making Locked On Colts your first listen every day. Make sure you check out NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. Locked On's local experts give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football. Plus, betting advice from the field's leading experts, Bet Online. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday and Locked On NFL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, I'm going to let you talk again some more now. So our next topic that we wanted to tackle today is kind of overshadowed by just the general funk of the Colts right now. And that's that their superstar reigning rushing champ running back, Jonathan Taylor, got banged up really for the first time in his NFL career, at least near the end of the game against the Titans. He got rolled up on in a short yardage situation, left the game, wasn't able to come back. It's an ankle injury. If I had to guess, he's probably not going to be out there Thursday. You know, there's some turf toe mixed in with it as well. I think they mentioned there's no point in putting him out there. So for my money, I would shelve him for Thursday, give him that longer rest period. You know, you get the 10 days before your next game. So yeah, what do you think this Colts offense would look like on Thursday against the Broncos without Jonathan Taylor? I mean, you got Nyheim Hines, Deion Jackson, and then Phillip Lindsay and Devontae Price over on the practice squad.
I mean, I can't imagine the running game looking worse.
Right.
I mean, Jonathan Taylor averaged 2 yards a carry this past game. I can't imagine it being much worse. I mean, hopefully it just means less carries for the running backs. I mean, I would love a game where maybe there's only like 10 rushes in total, because again, we said this in our post-game podcast the other day. Every single time the Colts called a run against the Tennessee Titans, it was a net negative for that offense. There was nothing positive coming from anything on the ground, and it was a wasted down every single time they ran. So I hope they don't run the ball much on Thursday. I don't know. I'm expecting a disgusting game on Thursday, an absolutely disgusting game, because both these offenses are absolute train wrecks.
Yes.
So now the Colts without Jonathan Taylor, I imagine it's going to be even worse. I'm just hoping for an Alec Pierce long catch or something. I don't even know what I'm hoping for at this point. Like, I don't even.
We hope for a stats game. We just want both teams to have fun, basically.
Yeah, but no, I think this offense is gonna look weird without Jonathan Taylor. Hopefully, it's just I'm hoping it's all Nyheim Hines in there, and it's a lot of throwing the ball. But my fear is that they're gonna call up Phillip Lindsay, and it's gonna be a lot of Phillip Lindsay runs that go for 1 yard, 2 yards, and it's what's the point in doing this at all? But no, I mean, if it were me, and if this were a perfect world, I would say just have Nyheim Hines play 80%, 90% of the snaps, and just throw the ball on 80%, 90% of the snaps, get a couple runs in there just to keep the defense honest. But I mean, you're going against a Broncos team where they probably have a bottom 5 linebacker group in the league. They're going to potentially be missing Randy Gregory. So their pass rushes.
They are. It just came out while you were talking earlier, 2 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. So their pass rush is not going to be nearly as good. And then outside of Pat Surtain, I don't think their secondary is that great. Like, this is a team that you can throw it on. But the way that this team has gone this year, I don't have any confidence in this offense. They might move the ball, but they're not going to finish it. So I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't have much confidence right now.
No. So I imagine on Wednesday we'll see that Phillip Lindsay's going to get called up for this game.
Yes.
I mean, Nyheim Hines will be the feature guy, but like you said, I don't think I would run it much. I'd give Nyheim 10 catches. Not just little dump offs, but give him Texas routes. Like, try and get him against linebackers over the middle of the field. Do something to finally utilize this dangerous offensive player that you have and have been neglecting. Do something. Like, Phillip Lindsay can have a few runs, sure, but like, Nyheim needs to be featured, not just as a runner up the middle. Like, get this dude out in space, please. Yeah.
Jake, I am betting on Phillip Lindsay's 20 carry, 70-yard, 1 touchdown revenge game against the Denver Broncos. That is my bet for this week. But if you guys have some other
How
bets,
dare you?
Go to Bet Online. Bet Online is your #1 source for football betting info this season. Find all your latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, Bet Online remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. If you guys want to make a bet for this Thursday's game, the Broncos are favored by 3.5. So if you are optimistic about this Colts team, place some money on the Colts. If you think this Colts team is terrible, put some money on the Broncos. And also the over-under for this game is 43.5. The way both these offenses are going.
Oh, smash the under.
Smash the under. I'm saying 9-7 in my score prediction this week. I think that's what I'm going to go with. So, yeah, it's going to be something pretty low. And I mean, these offenses might turn the ball over a lot, so who knows. But the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Jake, so this is going to be our only time to talk about the Broncos versus Colts this week, like just you and I together, because we'll have the crossover pod, obviously, and we'll have some other things. But this is mostly just you and I's only chance to talk about it. So, I think this is going to be a disgusting game, an absolute disgusting. And I think there's going to be like, although I don't really trust the Colts defense to force turnovers, I just think they're going to stymie the Broncos offense. But it really comes down to, like, honestly, I think the Colts win this game if the Colts offense just doesn't turn the ball over. But I have no faith in that happening.
Because Matt Ryan's ball security is at a record chaotic pace right now.
Right.
So
it's Jonathan Taylor fumbled and other players are fumbling. Ryan Kelly can't snap the ball correctly. Like, I don't know, man. It's going to be a disgusting game. But yeah, like, you have some stats here on the Broncos offense. This Broncos offense, it looks to be just as disastrous as the Colts offense right now, outside of the turnovers.
Yeah, it was already going to be an ugly matchup. And then Javonte Williams, who is one of the brightest young players on the Broncos, tears his ACL. He's going to be done for the season, so we won't see him. Randy Gregory, who was one of their better defensive front players, he'll be out again 2 to 6 weeks. The Colts, Jonathan Taylor, Shaquille Leonard, Tyquan Lewis, both teams are going to be short-handed in important areas. The Broncos, as much hype as the Broncos had, I know the Colts had some too. The Broncos are kind of the AFC West version of the Colts right now. They're 2-2. Their offense, again, yucky. Highest point total they've had so far is 23 points. They've had ugly games against Seattle. They lost 17-16. They beat Houston 16-9, and they beat San Francisco 11-10. Like, those are wins, but those are ugly wins.
I would kill for another ugly win right now. I would kill for another ugly win, Jake. I just want wins.
Yeah, unfortunately, the high point of Denver's team is their defense. They're tops in several areas except for the run. That's probably
Oh,
one
Philip
area they're a little
Lindsay.
vulnerable.
Oh, Philip
Well,
Lindsay
no, no, no,
revenge
no, no,
game.
no. The Colts had Jonathan Taylor against a very vulnerable Tennessee run defense, and he had his worst game probably as a pro. So it's all bad
Going for
because
120. Philip Lindsay's going
they're
for 120 in this game.
yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? But no, the Colts are going to have to
Uh,
pass 50 times, and Pat Surtain is going to be able to handle Michael Pittman, I
right.
assume, because Pat Surtain might just be the best corner in the league already. We don't know. I mean, he's top 3 probably. Yeah, it's not looking forward to it. But will I be up until 1 or 2 a.m. working about it? Yeah, I will. Yep.
You guys can tell we're having a lot of fun on this episode of the podcast. But if you guys are really looking for something positive here, again, we said this going into Kansas City week. This Colts team, man, they just love mediocrity so much. They love it. It's their favorite thing. It's just being mediocre. So they might go winless in the AFC South this year, but they will sweep the AFC West. They will show how good they are against the AFC West, or they'll sweep a random division that's much better than the AFC South. Well,
we know they're probably going to win this game.
Yes,
because they can't win. They can't win when they're favored, but they'll win on the road in Denver against a Russell Wilson led team when no one thinks they'll win. Probably they'll win that.
They'll blow them out. They'll win by like 30 somehow, and then we'll be like, "Oh gosh, we're back, everybody." But no, honestly, look, both these teams have a lot of just bad things going with them. Like they are just two teams that had a lot of expectations going to the year, that acquired veteran quarterbacks, fringe Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and it's just not working for either team right now. Their defenses are playing well. Their offenses are complete disaster. Their offensive lines are complete disaster. It's kind of just like what we were saying about this Tennessee game last week, where we said, oh, both these teams are like very, very similar on paper, and it's going to be a slugfest. But, the Colts kind of sleptwalked at the beginning of that game. So I don't know. Again, the Colts are better with their backs against the wall. This is a game that their backs are definitely against the wall. They're the underdog. No one expects them to win. So they'll probably come out and shock us and win this game. But honestly, on paper, I do think I can't even say that. I was going to say on paper, I think the Colts could come out and win this one. But again, this offense is so bad for the Colts. I don't know if I can even say that anymore. Like, they move the ball. They just can't score points, like, at all. So it's like,
they'll have a great drive punctuated by a nice fumble.
Yeah, like our boy Kenan or whatever on Twitter. Kenan or whatever. He put on there that the Colts had 3 opportunities to tie the Titans in the fourth quarter this past game. 3 drives. One ended up with a sack fumble, which ended in a punt, and then Jonathan Taylor's fumble, and then the sack fumble that turned into a missed field goal. And that's how the Colts lost that game. They had 3 opportunities where their defense gave them every opportunity to win that game or to tie that game, and their offense just couldn't get it done. And I have no faith in this offense right now. So we could say, again, Colts defense should have another good week. The Broncos are missing several key players. The Broncos themselves are not playing really well, but I have no faith in this Colts offense to take advantage of any of that.
Yeah, this literally is a get-right game for either side. Whoever wants to take advantage and not shoot themselves in the foot as many times is how it'll go, basically.
Yep. We're very optimistic today. We're having a lot of fun today.
Yeah. Don't worry. When they inevitably win, we'll have a cheery post-game show before it's back to digging in the mud right after.
Yeah, we'll throw the glasses back on.
Times.
We'll throw the glasses back on and be good.
We're clearly going off the rails, so that's it for us, everyone. Check back with us on Wednesday. We're going to be joined by a couple of special guests. We're going to get their thoughts on the state of the Colts, as well as their thoughts on the upcoming matchup in Denver. You guys clearly know how we feel about it now.
Yes. We can't say much more, so I'm glad we're going to have some guests on. Make sure you follow us on social media at Jake Arthur NFL, at Zach Hicks 2, and at Locked On Colts on Twitter. Also, subscribe to the shows on YouTube and wherever you listen to the podcast. Thanks again for making Locked On Colts your first listen every day. Now make the second listen of your day the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow.